Hi,
Hello, how are you, Dr. Margaret?
good. How are you?
Wonderful. I'm so excited to have Dr. Margaret Paul join us.
Thank you.
And
How is the sound right now? Are you
wonderful,
okay? Good.
wonderful.
I've got my Yeti mic plugged in, and
Great, great, great. I want to introduce you. You're the inner bonding lady, the inner bonding professor, if you like, of self-healing. And I'm very familiar, and I think some people would be by this time aware of your book. Do I have to give up me to be loved by you? What a wonderful title.
yeah, and that book that's been revised and has some inner bonding in it, but that's not a major book on inner bonding.
Yes. Oh, yes. You've gone on, and I mean, I'm the accolades. I can't. It's one thing after another. You have you've developed an inner bonding self-healing program, online program. You've written books. You've been interviewed by Oprah Winfrey, the Big O, and on and on and on. And you have a whole history, a long record of helping people, gain clarity with this process of healing the fears
Right.
of intimacy, rejection of and really standing these are things standing in the way of loving. And really you're teaching people what it means to love yourself so that you can share that with others. So I wanted to first ask you, why is it so important, Dr. Margaret, to love yourself? Why is that so important?
Well, the problem is that if we're abandoning ourselves, and basically most of us have learned four ways, which is we judge ourselves, we ignore our feelings by staying up in our head, we numb them with various addictions, and we make others responsible for them. If we were to do that to an actual child, judge them, ignore them, give them away, numb out with addictions, they would feel very rejected and abandoned by us. Well, that's what happens on the inner level. We end up feeling empty, alone, anxious, depressed, abandoned on the inner level. And then what happens is that we try and get somebody else to give us what we're not giving to ourselves. So not only are we creating the anxiety and depression and guilt and shame and anger and aloneness and emptiness that so many people are suffering from, but we create the relationship problems that are so endemic right now, where there's the codependent relationships because people are making each other responsible for their feelings because they're abandoning themselves. So it's so important for us to learn to love ourselves, to see who we are, to value who we are and our true selves, to discover our own inner worth and not make other people responsible for that, to learn to fill ourselves up with love so that we have love to share rather than always trying to get love.
Yeah, oh, that makes a great deal of sense. And how is that related to manifesting abundance? Because abundance can be defined so many different ways.
Right.
Just, wealth and money, not just career, but, in terms of love and your expertise in the area of love and relationships, how does that relate?
Well, it actually relates to all the areas because our ability to manifest, whether it's in our work, whether it's monetary, whether it's in relationships, is about our frequency. There's the law of attraction that says like attracts like. And this is very, very powerful. And what it really means is like frequency attracts like frequency. When we're abandoning ourselves, we feel badly. We feel anxious and depressed and all that. That's a low frequency. When we're loving ourselves, we are raising our frequency. And especially if we're loving ourselves also on the physical level and eating really clean, organic foods. This is one of my favorite things to talk about. And so when we're in a high frequency, we become co-creators with spirit, with whatever that is for the person. But we live in this universe of creativity, of creation. And when we're operating in a high frequency, we can co-create. And that means basically two things. One, we're taking care of ourselves physically so that our body's in a high frequency. And two, we're in what we call the intention to learn about loving ourselves. In the inner bonding process, there's only two intentions. Either we're trying to control and protect and avoid our feelings, or we want to learn about what's true and what's loving. And that intention raises our frequency to the point where we can access higher information quite easily. We can bring it in at will. And this is what my latest book is about, A Diet for Divine Connection, Beyond Junk Foods and Junk Thoughts to At-Will Spiritual Connection. And when we do this, we are able to become manifestors with spirit, to manifest our passion, our purpose, to manifest love within ourselves, with others, in relationships. So there's so many ways that we can manifest when we're loving ourselves, because that's the only way we're going to keep our frequency high.
Absolutely, absolutely. Oh, that just gives me goosebumps just listening to you. But it's true, we don't hug ourselves, do we? We don't have an appreciation of ourselves. But you're absolutely correct. I'm in total agreement. So how has inner bonding changed your life?
Well, I mean, it's like night and day, because I was brought up to be a caretaker, which means that I was brought up to completely ignore my own needs and feelings and be very, very tuned in to other people's needs and feelings, which I was very good at. And I did it for my parents, and then I did it for my husband, for my kids, my clients, everybody. I was Mother Earth for everybody until I became so ill. And, lots of times people get ill when they're giving themselves up like that. And that's when, and had already been practicing as a psychotherapist for many years, but nobody, and I had been in so many forms of therapy, but not one therapist told me that I needed to learn to love myself and connect with my higher guidance. And I started to ask for a process, and that's when Spirit brought in inner bonding. And that's when I started to practice this process, and everything changed in my life. I stopped being a caretaker. I started to learn to take care of myself. All my relationships shifted, my work shifted, everything in my life. I don't think that I ever experienced joy before that.
Wow.
And I experienced so much joy in my life at this point, and I'm able to manifest so much, which I wasn't able to do before.
Yes, you have to, I guess we have to resonate with that inner integrity, when there's inner bonding, there's a resonance with the truth of who we are, and so you're absolutely right. So what steps can we take for inner bonding? What are you advising people? What steps to take?
Okay, well, inner bonding is a 6-step process. And it's a process that anybody can learn. I can briefly go through the steps.
Yes, please.
They take practice, like anything worth learning, like learning to play the piano takes practice. You can learn the chords, but boy, you have to practice to get really good at it. And so with inner bonding, you have to practice these steps over and over and over again until they become a way of life for you. So step one is that we learn to move out of our mind focus into body focus. We learn to breathe mindfully and follow the breath down inside the body and get present with our feelings. In our society, people do so many things to avoid their feelings.
What's that?
I mean, it's very, very sad, because our feelings are a source of inner guidance. My feelings let me know whether I'm loving myself or abandoning myself. They let me know things that are going on with other people, situations. They let me know how to take care of myself. So they're very, very important. I don't want to numb them at all. I love my feelings. Even the painful ones are giving me information. All feelings have information for us. So step one is getting present. Our feelings are in our body, not in our head. And so it's learning to move from head focus into body focus and making a decision that you want responsibility for your feelings rather than to avoid them and protect against them. That's step one. Step two is moving into your heart focus, opening to learning rather than choosing that intention to control and avoid and protect. You choose the intention to learn about what you're doing that may be causing you pain, or what somebody else, what's happening with a situation or a person, any false beliefs, the truth about the beliefs and what's loving to you. Is a lot to learn. And we teach people in step two how to open to a higher source of love and truth, whatever that is for them, and to bring that love and compassion inside. And we create, when we do that, when we open to learning and connect to spirit, we create what's called the loving adult. We have to be in a loving adult state in order to learn to take care of ourselves. We can't be a child or adolescent and do that. And then step 3 is we're asking our inner self, you can call that your soul, your essence, your true self, your inner child, your feeling self, whatever you want to call it. What am I telling you? How am I treating you? What am I doing or not doing that's causing you to feel anxious or depressed or angry or alone or empty or jealous or, any of these feelings? Or what's happening with something, someone else or a situation. But mostly, how are we treating ourselves? And then we go inside and we allow the answer to come from the feeling themselves. Like if I was feeling anxious, I might say, what am I telling you that's making you feel anxious? It's happening with people a lot right now. And my inner child, or I'm not telling myself this, but the people I'm working with are saying, oh my God, I'm not safe. I'm going to get sick. I can't keep myself safe. I'm not going to be okay. Well, if you were to tell a child this, they would be anxious. You see, so we're tuning into how we're treating ourselves and what we're telling ourselves. And then we go a little deeper to discover false beliefs, because we've all got a lot of false beliefs. And I'm going over this very briefly, but it's really a powerful process.
Yes.
But once we understand how we're treating ourselves and what our beliefs are, then we move to step 4, which is we open again to our higher guidance, our higher self, spirit, God, whatever it is for the person. I often teach people to connect to an older, wiser part of themselves and to ask what's true about any of the beliefs and what's loving to me. Because we don't have good role models in our society of what's loving to us. And so we ask a higher part of ourselves, what's loving to me? And then in step 5, we do it. We take the action. Whatever it is we're guided to take, we take the action. And once we've taken a loving action, we go back in step 6 to see how I'm feeling. And if I'm feeling better, then if I'm feeling some relief, I know I've taken a loving action. And so these steps, the more you practice them, the more natural they become. And the faster they go. I can do them very quickly now in any situation to find out what I need to do to take care of myself and then do it in that situation. That's taken me a lot of practice to reach that place.
Yeah. It takes time. It's a evolvement. It's a developmental evolvement. You mentioned self-abandonment, and how does this affect, manifestation of dreams? So when somebody, for example, right now, people are losing their jobs, or maybe they're in a job that's not is not completely fulfilling for them, and yet they still remain in the same job, and they're afraid. Or so how does this manifest in terms of different aspects of life, especially in relationships as well? It must add extra pressure and tension in relationships, especially on the issue of finances. So what take do you have on that?
Well, like I was saying, any form of self-abandonment, whether we're judging ourselves, whether we're ignoring our feelings, whether we're turning to addictions, alcohol, drugs, food, work, pornography, sex, whatever, overwork, or making others responsible, all of them keep our frequency fairly low. It makes us feel like a victim. It makes us feel very powerless, like we have no control over our own lives. And then what happens is we try and control others. And this very much affects relationships, because if I'm abandoning myself, which means I am not loving, I am not filling myself up with love to share, I'm creating an emptiness inside. And then I'm going to want somebody else to fill that up with their love. And so in relationships, when you're not loving yourself, you're trying to get love from the other person. And in order to do that, you got to try to control in various ways. You got to give yourself up, be overly nice, sacrifice yourself, get mad, get angry, threaten. There's all kinds of ways that people try and control, and they don't want to be controlled. So then they go into resistance and they shut down and they withdraw. Well, all of these, of course, create a lot of relationship problems. I mean, this is the main thing that causes relationship problems is self-abandonment and the control that comes from that.
Right.
And I've got a great course called Wildly, Deeply, Joyously in Love that teaches all of this
Oh,
about
wow.
relationships. It's a 30-day course. It's very, very powerful regarding helping people understand what they're doing in relationships that's causing the problems. And people can go to innerbonding.com and find out about all of this.
That's
It
wonderful.
also affects finances. I mean, we can't manifest, like I said, when we're in a low frequency. We have to be in the frequency of love.
Yeah, absolutely. And also who we surround ourselves with. You know, part of the self-abandonment is remaining in relationships or in work environments that are toxic or not very fulfilling. And that's part of it. Your work is, you know, it's very profound. Nobody really teaches us self-love. You know, it's demonstrated through our parents, through our teachers, through our friends, but we don't understand, you know, the significance of it until maybe in adulthood. You know, how hard is it to connect to, you know, our personal source of spiritual guidance, and how can people achieve this?
Yeah, it's actually not very hard, but it is, like I said, it does have to do with frequency. And one of the things that's very pertinent on the planet today with what's happening with this virus is that a lot of people are not able to fight it because of their immune system. And one of the reasons that their immune system is not functioning well is because they eat junk food. That's why my book, Beyond Junk Food and Junk Thoughts, have to do with connecting with your guidance. Because if you're eating junk food, you're going to keep the frequency of your body too low to have this natural connection. It's actually a natural connection. But our bodies have to be clean and clear, which is what obviously we need for a healthy immune system. And so because people throughout the world have been eating so much junk food, processed food, sugar, factory farm foods, you know, anything but clean, local, organic food, their immune systems are low. They can't fight this off very well, and their frequency is too low to connect to guidance. I was trying for so many years to have what I call at-will spiritual connection, and that is to be able to do it anytime I wanted. Every once in a while, I would get a download, but I couldn't do it when I wanted to do it. And I was eating really well because I read Silent Spring 58 years ago, and when I was 22, I'm 80 this year, and in fabulous health. But at that time, I wasn't, and I was looking to improve my health, and I read those books and realized, oh my God, what we're doing to ourselves is horrible. So I started eating really, really well a long time ago. But that wasn't enough to create the spiritual connection. And when Spirit brought in inner bonding, and I understood about the intention to learn about loving myself, then all of a sudden I became able to have this connection. And I finally realized that it was both of them. It was how well I'd been eating for so long and opening to learning about loving myself that suddenly enabled me to have this at-will spiritual connection. So that's what I teach people. And, you know, it's not so easy to get people to change their diets, but if they really want to have a spiritual connection at will, that's what they're going to have to do. And if they want to be healthy, that's what they're going to have to do. And if they want to connect, they've got to let go of trying to control everything and trying to get love and learn to love themselves. And that will open them to their spiritual connection.
Yes. Oh, great advice. Great pearls of wisdom. Really, you've probably heard of the inner engineering that this East Indian guru, if you like, called Sadhguru, talks about the inner technology, the inner engineering, which is very aligned with what you're saying, is tuning into that spiritual guidance that's inside of us. And you know, we're in this work environment, in our culture, in Western cultures, we're so eager to achieve more and to produce more and to keep going and rushing. And, you know, and I'm at fault at that as well, you know. And, you know, it's not till the end of the day that I can just slow down, take a nice deep breath and just let it all out. But we do. Our culture isn't geared for siestas, for little naps. I remember as a child being allowed to have little naps in kindergarten. And that was, that was the cultural expectation in that school environment. It was a private, school. However, maybe we need time, from certain hour to a certain hour to just say, it's my siesta time.
Well, it's kind of being forced on people right now because so many people can't go to work, and they're having to deal with either being alone and dealing with their time, or, creating work at home, or, connecting with their family. Oh my God forbid they spend time with each other.
Oh my goodness, that's a horror in itself, right? Yeah, I think it impacts people differently. I mean, I don't know what you believe. Some people feel very comfortable. I feel very comfortable working out of my home. I'm far more productive at home than I am anywhere else.
Oh yeah, me too.
Right, and then there's other, and usually the introverts. I've been told the introverts have a fantastic time on their own in their home.
Yeah, I'm very much of an introvert. I know I don't come across that way right now, but I am. I'm very introverted. It's very, very easy for me to be home, and I love where I live. I live on a 35-acre ranch with my best friend. We're Golden Girls, and we have horses, and my schedule is I work 3.5 days a week, and then I have 3.5 days a week off, and I'm an artist and I can do that. So I'm perfectly happy. This is how I live anyway. I do everything at home anyway. So for me, it's no big deal. Although I put my in-person events online now, like so many people have. But I know a lot of people are having a hard time with being by themselves, or being home with kids or whatever, because they don't know how to love themselves. If they knew how to do that, even if they're extroverts, they would not be having such a hard time.
Yes. Yeah, there is quite a bit of resistance, as you were saying, that resistance that they're feeling the lack that's inside, and it's easy to ignore and say, oh no, I've got to get out. I've got to, I can't deal with my emotions. And why do you find, I mean, I have my own theories, but some people tend to live in their head, very rational mind. Very difficult. In my own coaching practice, I'm a relationship coach. Sometimes I encounter clients who have difficulty getting into their emotions, to get into that body of emotion. And what has been your finding? Why is that unexpected, that we always have a percentage of people who are going to live in their heads, and a certain percentage that are going to be far more in tune with their emotions?
What I found is that because most of us actually have had a hard time as we were growing up, and nobody taught us how to manage the deeper feelings of life, feelings like grief over loss, or loneliness when nobody's there for us, or helplessness over other people, or heartbreak. I mean, these are very painful feelings, and a little child cannot manage these very big feelings of life. And so virtually all of us, I mean, I don't meet anybody who hasn't learned to disconnect, to dissociate from their body and go up in their head as a way to manage those feelings. I think we all had to do that to one degree or another. I certainly had to do that. And when I started to practice inner bonding, I was completely in my head. I could tune into others' feelings, but I had no idea about my own. And so I work with this all the time. And that's why step one of inner bonding is the practice of coming back into the body, which is where the feelings are. But it's understandable that if we never learn to manage our feelings, if we never learn to learn from our feelings, it's very understandable that we had to find ways to avoid them. Of course we did. That was part of our survival. Those were defense mechanisms, survival mechanisms. They're not serving us now, but they served us well as we were growing up. So now that part of us that learned to avoid our feelings, that wounded part of us, that ego part needs healing. And that's what we do in inner bonding. We heal that part of us that feels like we can't manage our feelings. We've got to avoid them. We've got to have the drink. We've got to have the cigarette. We've got to stay up in our head. We've got to judge ourselves and, all sorts of things to avoid our feelings. Now we can learn to handle them, to manage them, to learn from them. They have such important information for us. But of course we had to learn to avoid them. And staying in our head is one of the ways.
Yeah, and it's scary. It's a scary place for for someone who has disconnected to reconnect again.
That's right. It takes time. It takes practice.
It's like expecting abs, overnight.
Right. That's right. It takes practice. It takes working out.
It does. And then that's the challenge as a practitioner, as a coach myself. It's always a challenge because it is a reminder. It's a constant reminder where the client really has to people. It's easy to run away. It is really easy.
It is.
Fall back to bad habits of junk food.
Right.
I wanted to ask you whether, I know that you have some free gifts for our viewers, whether you want to explain, what that is, what they can get by tapping into your sources here.
Yeah, so there's a free gift of an ebook called How Can I Heal So That I May Love? And it will take them through some of the inner bonding process. So it's a little ebook that came through for my higher guidance that can be a big help. We also, on our website, anybody can do this, go on our website and download a free 7-day inner bonding course. So there's a lot of free information available on our website for people who want help. And of course, then there's paid courses as well.
Oh, I recommend your sources and your program very highly, Dr. Paul. And, I know that this is a very significant part of our learning and growth, self-love, and yet, we've passed through it. We just kind of dismiss it. Oh, yeah, it's self-love, yeah, I know, I got to love myself. But it demonstrates, it shows in everything that we do. You're absolutely correct. But saying to someone, you know what, you got to love yourself more.
They don't know what it means. They don't know. Well, I do. I take a bath and I get my nails done. I mean, that's not what it's about. It's about really learning to take responsibility for all of our feelings, learning to be present with ourselves, learning to bring love inside of ourselves, learning to tap into our higher source of love, and learning to be able to share love with others. I mean, it's not just external, like, oh, I exercise or I go to a gym or I get my nails done. It's not just that. Those are fine. But, like if you have a child, the child doesn't feel loved unless you're paying attention to them, to what they feel, and you're there for them and you're supporting them. So that's what we have to learn to do for ourselves.
And many people are alarmed at the moment. They may be distressed or anxious, so they're lacking sleep. So other than the diet, the sleeping habits are really very significant it's important for our immune systems. And it's interesting that this virus, I don't know what your perceptions are of the virus itself, but it tends to draw to people who are low in their immune systems. But right. The immune system doesn't necessarily have to be a particular disease. It can also be not taking care, not having enough vitamins, not eating the right fruits, vegetables, not sleeping sufficiently or adequately. Right. All of
and being in a lot of stress, because stress erodes the immune system, and inner bonding is a fabulous process for dealing with stress. So that, when I say to people, you want to be healthy, you've got to eat well, you've got to have enough exercise, and you've got to do inner bonding to deal with your stress so that you're in peace inside.
Absolutely. And this self-isolation, what's your take on this? That we're kind of, many people are lonely and they're isolated even more than ever before. And as a love relationship master that you are, what can we do? How can we get around this?
Well, first of all, I mean, people can connect with each other virtually, which is really important to stay connected. We're connecting with each other right now. And that's really, really important to do, but so important. I mean, I just wish inner bonding, I just wish people would learn it, because this is a great time to start to get who they are, to start to really understand what it means to nurture themselves, to start to discover what brings them joy, what they love to do, what they would like to offer the planet, to start to learn to connect to their higher source of guidance and bring that love inside. This is a great time to take time to learn to love yourself. And you know, my take of this virus is that this is a planetary reset. Our planet is being rebooted. I think Mother Earth is so angry at us for how we've been treating her that she says, look, you know, you can't do this. I'm gonna create something globally so that you all get affected by it and you all see what you're doing. Because our food practices, and I'd like to recommend, this is not a book that I've written, but Dr. Mark Hyman wrote Food Fix. It's a fabulous book, and it shows people what's happening to the planet, how we're ruining it with the factory farms. It's creating global warming, and how abandoning ourselves is contributing to that, because we treat the planet the way we treat ourselves. So I think that this is happening for a very good reason.
Yes, I agree with you. There's a spiritual lesson for all of us.
Right, right.
I just want to thank you so much in regard. I will ask you one last question, because everybody, not everybody, but most people want to know, what makes a great relationship?
Well, what makes a great relationship is when each person is taking responsibility for their own feelings, taking responsibility for bringing themselves joy, for manifesting themselves, for filling themselves with love, and they come to each other to share their love, to have fun, to learn, to grow, to make love with each other, not to get validated, not to get seen, not to get understood, but to give, to share with each other, because they're already understanding themselves, they're already hearing themselves, they're already validating themselves and filling themselves up. And from that place, they can come together and share love and share so much learning and growth. And the relationship stays new because they're always learning and growing within themselves and sharing that with each other. And that's what creates wonderful relationships.
Oh, thank you so much. I want to thank you for you know, giving us this precious time to visit with you, Dr. Paul, and thank you so much. I'm sure the viewers are.
You're very welcome.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.